let me just say hi to everybody. This is my cat, Toby, who I did not expect to be part of this live stream, but here we go. Everybody's anxious right now. At least I think most of us are. I certainly am. Stressful, unprecedented time. And so we've been thinking a lot at 10% Happier about how we can be of service. And about 4 days ago, we came up with the idea to do this thing. So we're gonna do live streams, live guided meditation every workday, indefinitely, and see how it goes. It's really an experiment. So if there are technical issues, sorry, I'm gonna get rid of this cat. If there are technical issues, please bear with us. But we're really excited to do this, and I think it's really needed at this time. The formats can be pretty loose. We're going to do 5 minutes of guided meditation, and then we'll take your questions. You can go into the comments section of YouTube and just type your questions in, and then we'll collect them and read them out after the guided meditation. Speaking of guided meditation, our maestro today is Oren Jay Sofer. Oren, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be able to be here.
What is your personal? I mean, it's always interesting to ask a meditation teacher this question. So, what's your personal anxiety level?
It's fairly low. It spikes, with the news. When there's a new piece of news, I can feel it come up, and then it settles. My main thing is that I've got 3 parents, 1 stepdad and 2 biological parents, all in their 70s and 80s. My mom and stepdad are stuck in Rome, Italy. My dad's holed up in Jersey. So, I feel a lot of concern for their well-being and safety. And I think I feel the ambience, kind of like panic and anxiety, just in the air. But personally, I'm not tied up in knots, because I don't let my mind go there, because I recognize it doesn't help. Right.
Well, I'm assuming that's a skill you developed through meditation that you might not have been born with.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, what do you say we jump in? Actually, I'm realizing I didn't give you a chance to just before we jump in, because we'll do that really quickly. But just in 10 to 20 seconds, you just describe your background so people understand.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So I started meditating about a little over 20 years ago with Joseph Goldstein's teacher, actually in India, and it's been a big part of my life. The last 10 years or so, I've been teaching, and also an author. I write books on communication and meditation, and as you know, do a lot of work with you guys at 10% Happier. So yeah, it's just these days the virologists and epidemiologists are in the spotlight, and that whatever little good meditation teachers to help everyone get through this time, I'm just on.
Let's go for it. You wanna take it away?
Absolutely. So everyone who's first, I just invite you to take a deep breath. Just breathe in through your nose. Breathe out through your mouth, long and slow. And then in your own time, you can either shut your eyes or just gaze down at the ground in front of you. Sit comfortably. Your body, but not be tense or rigid. There. Again, maybe taking another deep breath. And just feeling what's happening in your body. Notice any thoughts. See if you can relax your jaw. Let your shoulders feel heavy. And the first thing here is just to acknowledge that whatever you're feeling right now, whether it's low-grade panic or totally numb and disconnected, and anything and everything in between, is totally normal, natural, and manageable. And just seeing if you can give yourself some space to be right exactly where you are, emotionally, mentally, and physically right now. And you might picture a smooth stone just sinking down through a clear pool of water, just gently, slowly sinking down. And in the same way, allowing your attention to sink and settle inside. Letting your awareness sink down through your torso, through your core, all the way down to the place where your backside touches the chair. And just see if you can feel the steady contact there with the chair. Some firmness, some pressure. See if you can notice the support of the ground. So when we feel anxious or tense, when we're experiencing some unpleasant emotions, once we've acknowledged that and tried to make a little space inside, the next thing we want to do is find a reference point, someplace to ground that's outside of the anxiety and the tension. So see if you can let your awareness rest with the sensations of your body resting on the chair. You might notice the space around your body. The space is open. It's not pressing on you. You might notice the sounds around you, the sound of my voice. And see if you can begin to give more of your attention to these aspects of your experience directly in the present moment. The feeling of weight in the body, the gentle rhythm of your breath, the sense of space around you. And just letting any tension, any anxiety, any thoughts or fears just be in the background or the margins of your awareness. And just keep inclining your attention back to the simplicity of your body sitting. That gentle wave of the breath. And making space inside for however you're feeling. And if we don't fight it, if we don't resist it, or get overly involved, the tension, the anxiety, the shakiness, it'll dissipate and pass on its own. Well, let's just continue to sit quietly together. Feeling your body, feeling your breath. Maybe taking another deep breath if you like. Feeling the exhalation, letting it be long, and slowly beginning to bring some movement into your body, letting your eyes open when you're ready. And just as we transition out, I invite you to see if you can allow your jaw, your face to continue to be relaxed, your neck and shoulders. All right, there we are.
That was great. Appreciate it. Just quick shout out to Janine from the Netherlands and Sarah from Hawaii who are watching. Oren, you talked about something key and we'll open it up for questions from anybody who wants to submit questions. You can just type right into the comments section of YouTube. But while I have you, Oren, you talked about this really counterintuitive, and I often argue sort of baller move of instead of fighting or feeding whatever's going on for us, fear, anxiety, anger, whatever, you can actually just be with it, feel it.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's fascinating. It's counterintuitive, like you said. But when we resist an emotion or a feeling or a sensation or even a thought, when we tighten up or push away from it, or when we get overly involved with it and we start letting it, take over, we just give it energy. So that counterintuitive move to just be with it is more subtle than we'd think, because being with it often doesn't mean focusing on it. And this is where people get tripped up. It's like, I should just be with my anxiety, so I'm going to focus on it. Well, if you focus on your anxiety, it's probably going to get bigger. So the thing to do is to find someplace else to put your attention, like your breath, your body, sound, something visual to look at that's pleasing. You need to give yourself a reference point outside of the discomfort or the disturbance emotionally, physically, mentally. And then what you do is you keep coming back to that reference point, giving yourself space to let whatever's happening just roll through. And that's a particular skill we develop, learning, how do I create space? How do I just actually not even create it? It's there already. How do I tune into the space that's available by not pushing or pulling against what's happening?
We've got a bunch of questions coming in, and I'm sensitive to that, so but I just want to clarify. So that sounds fantastic, but another way to think about it is to kind of put it on an investigative hat, which makes sense to me as a journalist. So you're sitting there in meditation. Maybe you're watching the feeling of your breath coming in and going out, and then you're hit with a big wave of, oh my God, do we have enough food for the next couple of weeks, or what's going to happen to my parents, or right. I can't believe I got to deal with these kids I'm cooped up with for who knows how long. The move is to just to notice that it's happening, and then to look, oh yeah, well, how does that show up in my body? What are the physiological consequences of that? Which I think kind of breaks what seems like a monolithic emotion apart and makes it seem more manageable. Do you agree with my characterization there? Yeah,
no, absolutely. You're speaking to kind of like a key step that I skipped over, probably because I do it so automatically, right? Which is that sense of like, you disengage the attention from the story, from the content, bring your awareness into your body, actual direct experience, and how is this feeling, what's happening? And then once we're with some of that tension, the tightness, the lump in the throat, the shakiness in the arms, right, all of that stuff, that's where we start trying to widen the attention, make some space for it, and be with that physiological and energetic experience of the emotion in the body, and keep disengaging from the thoughts, which are what's going to spin it out.
And you will experience the thoughts, to be clear, viewers.
Yeah, they can come and go, but they're just in the background. It's like, yes, we're not focusing on it. We're in the body, or like I was saying, someplace else to rest your attention while that other stuff can just kind of dissipate.
And the point of this isn't to get better at doing it while you're meditating. The point of this is to do it in the rest of your life. So as soon
Absolutely.
as live stream ends, you're going to go back to work, you're going to start dealing with your kids, whatever. You may get hit with lots of powerful emotions, and you want to be able to watch them come and go without being owned by them all the time. And that's one of the primary skills of this kind of meditation. Okay, so let me get to some of the questions. Natalie from London. There's a lot of uncertainty in this moment, she points out correctly. How do you suggest people work with this?
Yeah, great comment, Natalie. A couple of different things. So First and foremost, this is a time to really stay focused on the present moment, right? When we start looking ahead to the future, we recognize, I don't know what's going to happen, and we see that we're not in control of the future. So what we can influence is how we show up in the present. So when we're faced with that uncertainty, one of the best things to do is to say, well, what I can do now is take a breath. What I can do now is learn how to relax, feel grounded and stable in myself, so that I'm not adding to the tension, and so that I'm there to help and to respond to others. So this is I think, one way of meeting the uncertainty. Another way of meeting it is to consider the perspective that you have. So how are you thinking about the uncertainty? And we can think about the uncertainty with a lot of fear, with a lot of dark visions of the future. Is this how it's going to be from now on? Or how are my kids going to go to school? Or how am I going to get enough food for the house? Those thoughts are going to paint a very different picture than taking the perspective this is society. Here we are. What's the role that each of us has to play in working together? Right? So that's also acknowledging the uncertainty, but it's coming from a place of recognizing our interconnectedness and seeing, what can I do to help to contribute?
So we're watching right now, but here's the exact question from Zenot. How can we lead by example in this moment of panic and overwhelm?
Yeah. Thanks, Zenot. I think one of the things that we're seeing is the connections, the interconnectedness of our world and of our relationships is becoming much clearer, right? All of the ways that our lives impact and affect each other, which has always been there, it's always been the case, is now made more tangible and palpable. And so one of the ways that we can lead is by widening our focus beyond our sense of self. So the fear response is to contract. I need to protect myself. I need to protect my family. How am I going to get through this? And that creates a very, very small world and feeds the fear. When we can widen our perspective and recognize we each have a role to play in creating the conditions for as least harm and suffering as possible. And there's already a lot of suffering. So how do we limit the harm? How do we limit the impact? Right? That's by each of us doing our part, by physically distancing, doing what seem like very small things, diligently washing our hands, avoiding touching your face in public, and so forth. But when we imbue those actions with a sense of responsibility and care for the greater good, not only is that empowering for us individually, but that's a way of modeling leadership. There's a very powerful story that the Vietnamese Zen master and teacher Thich Nhat Hanh tells about refugees escaping Vietnam and being at sea in a small boat where there's storms and large waves, and pointing out that in this small boat, if everyone panics, it's very easy for the boat to sink. And if there's just one person who's able to stay calm, who's able to see clearly, that one person can save all of their lives. And I think that, each of us today is that one person, or has the opportunity to be that one person in this boat, in this sea that we're all in, and to not lose it, right? To stay grounded, whether you're in the grocery store or walking down the street. So the other thing we can do, apart from the external actions of each playing our role, is take care of your mind. Take care of your heart. And that doesn't mean not feeling anxious. It doesn't mean not feeling afraid. It means being present with your fear, being present with your anxiety. Don't let it take over. Use your skill, use your resources of community, of connection, to handle what we're feeling, so that we are more available to one another.
So we our goal on these is only to go 20 minutes, but since this is the first one and there are a lot of questions, let me just see if I can sneak one more question in here.
Yeah.
Because we're technically almost out of time, but this is a big question that a lot of people are going to have is how are you? This is from Joshua. Would love to hear Oren's thoughts on how to titrate news intake mindfully.
Yeah, this is a great question, Josh. It's ironic. I actually wrote a blog post several months ago on how to handle the news, and it's like even more relevant today than it was then. I think the first thing to do is to notice your impulse to check the news, right? Because that's where it starts. Is there something inside happening that we turn on the radio, we go to the news feed, or however you're consuming your information. So check and see, why am I looking, right? Is it coming from fear and anxiety and kind of feeding that loop? Or is it coming from a clear and conscious choice? I want to stay in touch with what's happening. Let's see what's going on today. So checking the motivation and the intention is a really important first starting point. Now that means for most of us, probably turning notifications off on the phone, because those just pop up, right? And now we're not consciously choosing, we're being yanked around by the news cycle. So that would be a concrete recommendation, so that you're choosing when you get the news. I think the next thing is considering what information do you need, right? So how much information is enough for you? And thinking about this before you go into your news feed or turn on the radio or however you're getting your information. What is your purpose? What is your goal, right? If it's just to get the headlines, then make a really clear, conscious choice. Going to listen to the headlines for 5 or 10 minutes, or going to scan the headlines and then turn it off. The last thing is tracking your own physical and emotional experience as you are engaging with the news. So whether it's just 5 minutes of headlines or half an hour of reading and research or longer, the key is to take small breaks and do little check-ins with yourself. Right, because what happens is, as we're looking at the screen or as we're listening, often we get so consumed and transfixed by the information and the content of what we're perceiving, we lose touch with what's happening here in our own heart and in our own body. And then, half an hour or an hour later, we realize that we're fried, we're exhausted, we're our stomach is in a knot and we're in a frenzy. So the way to avoid that is to have little breaks, and you can set a timer on your phone, and just check in with yourself. Take a breath. How am I doing? What's happening? And if you notice that tension and fear and anxiety building up, pause. The news is going to be there 10 minutes later when you come back to it. Take a short walk outside, get some air, do a few push-ups, have a glass of water, right? Do what you need to let the intensity of whatever's built up start to dissipate. And this comes back to what Dan and I were saying before, that energy is there to help us, right? Anxiety, fear are self-protective. So there's a signal coming in that says danger, danger, danger. Nervous system gets really charged up. I got to do something. If you put down the signal, that danger, that energy will dissipate on its own if you allow it. And then as you start to come back to balance, you can take another dose. So those are a few recommendations.
Those are great. And I love your point about the fact that we tend to beat ourselves up for feeling anxiety or fear, but we are hardwired for this, and it is adaptive. It's self-protective. You need a certain amount of it. I was talking to an anxiety expert from Harvard about something called the Yerkes-Dodson curve, where not enough anxiety and you're not dealing with what you need to deal with. Too much, you're ineffective. And so you kind of want to be in that sweet spot in the middle when meditation is really useful there. Oren, great job. As we close out, I just want to say a couple things. I noticed that a lot of people are chiming in to say thank you for this. I'm not a super sentimental guy, but I will say that it is, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of Oren and the whole 10% Happier team. It is honor to be able to help out at this time, and we're going to be doing this every work day, every weekday at 3 Eastern. and we invite you to join us every day. It would be great. You could do us a solid by doing two things, actually. One is tell everybody you know, because we'd love to help as many people as possible. And the second is we're going to put a link to a little survey in the comments section of YouTube. If you took a minute or two to fill that survey out to tell us what we're doing well and what we're not doing well, that would be great. There are a lot of questions I didn't get a chance to get to, including Kelly from Nashville asking about how to talk to kids about this. But I just want to say sorry, the cat is here again. I just want to say on that score, tomorrow we're going to talk to Will Kabat-Zinn, who's an incredible meditation teacher, father of two. So we'll talk to him about that. And then on Wednesday, we're going to post a whole podcast with Susan Kaiser Greenland about parenting during a pandemic. So a lot of programming coming up on parenting. All right, Oren, you're amazing. Really appreciate you joining us for the inaugural episode of 10% Live. Thank you, bud.
Happy to be here, Dan. Thanks for the invitation.
Okay, we'll see you guys right back here.